Well, it's been a tumultuous week in the Australian media. The nation's two largest companies, Fairfax and News Limited, have both announced major restructures. Today, News Limited revealed it would streamline operations and slash jobs, but it wouldn't say how many. It's also spending up big to buy into pay television and a business website. Joining me live in the studio tonight is News Limited Chief Executive Kim Williams. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure, Lou.
Your announcement today makes it clear that News Limited believes that newspapers in print form do have a strong future. Given what we've seen with papers overseas and with long-term circulation declines here, are you being too optimistic?
Well, I think you can only call the shots in relation to the market you deal with and the environment in which you're working. And we still have very healthy circulation of newspapers in Australia.
But the trend is downwards.
Yeah, but we sell 11 million of them every week. It's not an insignificant number. And our audience reach is still very substantial. Now, of course, we're developing lots of other platforms as well. We're developing online and we're developing mobile and smartphones and social media and broadcasting, so that we are fundamentally concerned with where consumers are and delivering good journalism over those technologies.
How long do you think print has a future?
Look, I don't have a perfect crystal ball on print. You get lots of free advice in a job like mine and lots of absolutely confident views. I think print has a future. As to how long the future of print is, I don't really know, but I certainly, in terms of normal planning horizons, I think it'll be around for a long time.
Today you've announced that you have plans to trim the traditional newspaper business, and simultaneously you're spending millions on acquiring a specialist online publication business, Spectator, and you're spending billions for a bigger stake in pay TV. If I follow your money trail, doesn't it indicate that you think the real future is in digital and TV, not in print?
Oh, I think the growth and the real consumer migration will progressively be across to digital technologies and broadcasting, and I think that's been the story of media over the course of the last 30 or 40 years. Print still has an active life, but you'd be silly to deny all of the movements that are taking place in terms of technology development and the consumer love of many of these technologies. I mean, the ubiquity of the iPhone, the extraordinary accelerated uptake of tablets is a fascinating phenomenon and a very great challenge, because one of the great challenges is, in the physical world, a dollar is a dollar. In the digital world, that dollar becomes about 18 cents. So you need lots and lots of 18 cents, lots of piles of them, in order to get back to that dollar. Now, I think we have a strategy to achieve that, and acquiring the business site that you mentioned is one part of that strategy, but it's not easy.
Is it inevitable then, if it's not easy, is it inevitable, as a lot of media analysts think, that Sydney and Melbourne will become one newspaper towns?
I think it's a bit early to call that sort of outcome. Certainly I intend for our newspapers to be there.
When you say that you have to basically make those 18 senses, if you like, stretch further, that basically means you need to attract a whole lot of new readers, 5 times as many people basically as would currently buy your print papers.
Or you need to get people to be paying for things in micropayments and in a variety of different ways for services that you're providing. For example, developing a really terrific state-of-the-art app that applies for a football season, with great journalism, with terrific monitoring of all of the key elements of that, and a one-off charge. Or having a weekly charge, having a variety of different payment models where people get the things that they really want, they really care about, and you're providing it to them in an excellent way.
Fairfax has announced this week that it's closing printing plants, which would indicate that it thinks print newspapers are on their way out. That's a very different message to what
Might also indicate something else. Might indicate they have extraordinarily inefficient printing plants.
It could. Given that they seem to be, I would interpret it as thinking that print is, as I say, perhaps on the way out. That's a very different message to the one that you have sent this week. Does it mean that at some point in the future we're going to look back at this week and say, well, that's where the decision was made, where one or the other of these companies went wrong and sowed the seeds of your own destruction?
Well, I think it's an inappropriate thing to be calling the demise of one technology, which still has a very robust life in consumer Australia, particularly when, in the case of Fairfax, digital revenues, last time I looked, were around 11 or 12% of their total revenue base. That's not a sufficient basis to actually make the change. But it's not for me to comment about Fairfax. I comment about the company that I run. And certainly in our instance, we have a confident future with newspapers for the foreseeable future, and we're making big moves to actually ensure that we have digital literacy and fluency across our business with great training and great new approaches to digital technology so that it's embedded inside our business rather than actually being a bolt-on external from the business.
Without going into the internal commentary on Fairfax, given what's going on there, how do you think the Murdoch empire would feel about taking on the Reinhardt empire? She's clearly prepared to put some money into newspapers.
Look, competition usually produces great outcomes. It produces better products and it produces good things for consumers. So you'll never find me shying away from competition. Competition's great for life.
On the details of your announcement today, you've said all day that you won't reveal details of how many job losses you're expecting, but you must have done some projections around this consolidation you're planning of the 19 business operations into 5. Can you give me a sense of the proportion of the jobs that might be lost in editorial?
Well, certainly I was talking because I anticipated many of these questions, and I have a really boring approach to responding to questions. I try to the maximum extent possible to be utterly truthful. I don't know the number, but I said to our people and culture team yesterday, look, how bad could it be if we don't get everything through natural attrition, if we have to actually do substantial retrenchments? They said, well, look, it'll be a number that is significantly less than the one that was announced by Fairfax earlier this week.
But I guess sorry to interrupt, but I guess what I'm asking is, can you give me a sense, are they mostly going to be middle management jobs? Are they mostly going to be editorial jobs?
Look, there are backroom positions, there are middle management jobs. No, in editorial, I think that will be probably one of the more slender impacts from a number of the actions that we're taking. We're very much about improving the quality of our journalism and the richness of our journalism, particularly in terms of a multi-platform world. It's very demanding.
The Shadow Communications Minister Malcolm Turnbull said today that he thinks the value of Fairfax lies in being seen as a trustworthy source of news, that they're seen as objective, balanced and not pushing a particular individual's agenda. Is that a veiled criticism of the Murdoch stable?
I think it's a most interesting view of Fairfax. I mean, many of the individuals that work at Fairfax shamelessly pursue personal agendas on a daily and weekly basis.
Don't they in your stable too?
Yes, they do. I would say that absolutely. I think it's part of newspapers. I think newspapers have a rich history of backing talented people who have interesting views that actually engage with the community and that the community follow.
So you don't see that part of your competitors' value then is this idea of editorial independence?
Look, I think that's a shibboleth that has long since been disproven in the output of the products, but I know that it is a popular view of Fairfax.
We're out of time, unfortunately. Kim Williams, thank you very much.
Pleasure.